Welcome back to the wickedest little city in America for the 2023 Gunsmoke Sessions. April 22nd at the Silver Star Hall in Dodge City, Kansas. Featuring rock, metal, rap, and acoustic. With performances by Guns on Mars,
Hey Radio,
Brightbird,
Maurice Anthony,
Witch Cradle,
Karen Severin,
and many more. Get your tickets online at www.etherdc.com/Gunsmoke Sessions.
Gunsmoke Sessions 2023.
April 22nd at the Silver Star Hall in Dodge City, Kansas. Get your tickets now.
Hello, and welcome to Sunflower State of Mind, recording live from KCDI Studios. I'm Kent, and with me, as always, is Whitney, and
Hello.
Caitlin, and Zachary.
Fuming.
Fuming.
Yeah,
We are all.
That's
Sweaty,
who I am. I am
angry,
fuming.
Yeah, I'm so angry.
What was
been-
that?
That was wild. If you did not tune into the Garden City Chamber of Commerce Legislative Coffee this morning, you can check that out on our page. There was so many, or on Garden City Chamber of Commerce's page, there were so many topics that were brought up and so many things to be angry about from our legislator guys. It's hard to think right now and sift through it all. We'll be releasing videos, short clips of videos on our page throughout the week and discussing it on Wednesday, as we look forward to having Representative Bob Lewis on the show. He told us he'd be more than happy to join us. We confirmed a date, and he has ghosted us since. So he said he'd be here. We're expecting him to be here, and yeah.
We are expecting a politician to keep their promises, and that doesn't ever fail anybody. So,
you know, one of the points they made in the coffee was listening to their constituents and voting how they feel, and we are a large population of and our viewers, their constituents, and you know, we expect them to be here to talk to us and see how we're feeling. They say that they call and they talk to their constituents before they make choices on votes to vote for the way their constituents feel. But
we already got it coming
we
in.
haven't heard it. Yeah,
Apparently.
Republicans ask questions. LOL. For those that didn't watch, that was pretty much a statement.
A theme.
So
it was a theme.
That was a flat
before
out
we get too
statement.
much into it, though, guys, today's a special session because
Yes.
it's Saturday. We don't normally go
It is
live on
Saturday.
Saturdays, but
What are we doing here?
This tea is too hot. We cannot let it cool down. We have to. And we also have a special guest with us today because he was in the audience and we were already planning on interviewing him. And so the sun, the moon, and the stars kind of lined up for those that were in attendance at the Legislative Coffee and watching online. So an audience member was willing to join us today. And he's not just an average person. We got Isidro Marino joining us today, and he's just here in the background ready to join us any moment. So it's gonna be a good one. Like it's such an odd day to have a show, but I'm excited about it.
Yes, and
I'm also very angry about today.
we were totally planning on recording with Isidro today, and airing a interview with him either next week or the week after. But as Zach said, everything lined up right. And if you don't know who Isidro Marino is, Isidro ran for USD 457 Board of Education in the last election cycle. And hopefully, maybe we'll find out today if he plans on running again. Isidro would be something huge for the Board of Education in the way of diversity and looking more like what our community looks like. And I think it's a large sect of population that is underserved on our Board of Education, and so he would make a great addition to it. So we're excited for him to be here today and to talk a little bit about the Board of Education as well as the Legislative Coffee. So with this being
a lot of heroes at the coffee today, and
There was.
they all deserve acknowledgement. I look forward to clipping their videos and getting them posted up to our page as soon as possible.
I want to
Absolutely.
apologize to the chamber real quick. Due to my ignorance, I didn't realize my commentary was in their commentary. Not that I would change my sentiments at all, but I
You
probably
just didn't want to bog them down.
I didn't. It is not ever in my interest to be in somebody else's domain, to take over a comment section at all. So.
What was your biggest? Let's start with Zach. Zach, you were there at the meeting today. What was the one thing that stood out most to you?
The fact that there was a new presence there.
Oh man,
And-
it was. Horrible.
There's not normally a police presence at a legislative coffee.
Oh, that one.
So it was kind of odd to have police there this time, and a very stark warning at the beginning of the legislative coffee that seemed very pointed at specific people that like to speak out of turn and rile people up. And so that was very, very much on my mind while I was there. They've made it clear that they are willing to arrest people if they don't conform to what they considered to be appropriate for a legislative coffee.
And in regards to that, that was meant for decorum, staying peaceful, civility. On all
I'm
respects.
not sure how
Does
when
that
you add that kind of authoritative presence that would denote that the intention is decorum.
So does decorum only apply to the audience members, or should it apply to the legislators that were sitting there, or master deflectors, as I'm calling them now? Does that apply to them as well?
Apparently not.
No, it did not.
It
today.
doesn't.
No, it was pretty. It got
They
pretty
don't
wild.
have to have the respect for you and your question. You have to have the respect for them and their answer, though.
And that's where that question from Alexander earlier that he posted, and I'll show it again here. You know, do you have to be a Republican to ask questions? I think that's where a lot of that came from.
They actually said that, like, we're getting a lot of Democrat questions.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Which also, excuse me, for you to like try to align with those questions being Democrat or Republic, like Democrats represent the humanity in all of us, because that's inaccurate.
It was a dismissive.
It was a big reminder that they don't care what they're hearing, that it's business as usual, and that we need to stay in our place because they're in their place and they know better.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And at this time, we'd like to bring in our guest of honor, Isidro Marino. He was at the Legislative Coffee today as well and asked a pretty poignant question. Isidro, welcome to the show.
Kent, you read my mind.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on, Zach and Kent. I also want to thank Caitlin and Whitney, meeting you all just earlier at the Legislative Coffee. You all are amazing, and I'm glad to be on the show. I'm originally from California. I was born in East Los Angeles, and I moved here in 2016 with my parents in Garden City. We have family out in Kansas and Nebraska, and so they convinced us to move here. And ever since 2016, I've been actively involved in the community. I graduated from the high school here. I attended community college here, and I'm now attending the University of Fort Hays online. And as mentioned earlier, I ran for the school board in 2021. But sadly, I did not win. But I'm still active in my community through several nonprofit organizations. I work a lot with the Kansas Advisory Group on Juvenile Justice and the Coalition for Juvenile Justice on the national level. And so I get to work with a lot of cool people doing amazing things in the state and in the country. But also this year, I may be looking into very likely running for school board. I'll see where that goes. But for now, I'm going to talk about what went on earlier at the Legislative Coffee here in Garden City. That definitely
what was your takeaway?
Was very interesting. I was very surprised. I've attended one before, and I've attended other government town halls similar to this one, and I've never seen the type of reaction from these legislators like I did today. So I was kind of taken aback by the behavior from the legislators, more so from the audience. So yeah, it was definitely very different, and I have a lot of opinions and takes.
Right? Oh, I couldn't believe some of the audacity out of their voices today. I mean, we had everything from my sister's a lesbian to I have black friends mentioned. I mean, just every Republican trope. It was like stereotype after stereotype. You can't even write this stuff. It's just so natural to them. You're not allowed to give them any pushback at all, but they're allowed to make jokes and whatnot at your expense. You got, what was it, 5 white men up there today? And all 5 of them are talking about how women are inferior, and that's why we have to protect them with these laws. And it literally took a woman standing up named Lindley, who's been on the show before and a fantastic person, is at every Legislative Coffee. She made a very passionate speech about, for the love of God, would you please stop speaking down to us and acting like you're saving us or something.
I'm here on this show.
I can't wait to clip that speech for you guys.
I'm on this show because of the Vote No Matter Okay, so when you do something like that in August to women and you say, we're going to be in control of your uterus, and then do this fucking flip where, oh, hey, actually now we're going to be protecting women with these transgender bills. And so, like, don't lie to my face like that. Don't pretend that you care about me at all or other women at all, because it's very clear that you don't. And stop using us for your political agendas. Stop using us to write hateful fucking legislation.
Right.
Yeah, I think the comment was made today that, it seems women are being treated as second-class citizens again. We're regressing backwards through these policies that are being introduced and treating women as they are less than.
Thank you for joining us, Lindley.
Yeah, when a woman needs protection, she'll ask for help. I don't recall any female athlete in the state of Kansas asking for this through the legislation. In the legislation we're talking about is obviously trans women playing in sports. This is going to affect one person in the entire state of Kansas next year. And if you have researched this person, you know that they're not, I hate to say it, they're not a great athlete. They're not going to make a difference on being on a woman's team. They may not even get much playing time being on a woman's team because they can't compete that way. So this is more for the social interaction side of things. And one thing that really stood out to me today was, we went through all these transgender bills, and then a question was asked about what's happening here locally with our kids, and they all deflected saying that they don't have any business legislating or speaking on things that happen locally for our kids. But here we are.
Who elected you? What are you talking about? What do you mean by that?
I'm like, it's in your district. Do I have to ask you a question from another district that you don't represent? I'm like, you're representing us. Represent us.
Exactly.
And Lindley makes a great point here. Who's playing sports with us? Why do schools have sports? The whole point of sports being there is to teach teamwork and coordination skills and promote exercise. And it's supposed to be a part of the learning experience. Mm-hmm. But they make it so competitive. Well, I mean, what more can promote more teamwork than everybody working together to do the best they can? I mean, let's get rid of this co-ed. Let's get rid of this segregated sports and go co-ed with everything. And then maybe Bob Lewis will end up being right. Maybe men are stronger. But I think they're terrified to find out that they're wrong.
Now,
they're dead wrong.
When I was doing a bunch of research on all these bills, one thing that struck me, and especially with the women's sports one, the sheer amount of professional input that they had from medical organizations, psychological organizations, sports organizations, school organizations that were opponents of the bill. I saw it was like 20 pages. And then of those 20 pages, maybe like 2 were proponents of the bill that wanted it to go through. And those all had a religious tie. They were not experts. They were not knowledgeable in the facts. But yet here we are.
Yeah. I also wanted to add that Riley Gaines, the woman who is behind the whole issue, she's from Kentucky. She's not even from Kansas. The organization that brought this bill to the legislator, they're not from Kansas. It's an organization trying to push this bill, which they just copy and paste across legislators across the entire country. And it's just a copy and paste bill that does nothing to benefit our state. Even Governor Kelly had mentioned that KSHA, which is the Kansas School Sports Association, already is in charge of ensuring that transgender women and men are their rights are being protected while playing sports. So this bill literally does nothing to govern, nothing to protect women, nothing to protect trans people. It literally is just made to bully trans people, and just adding more barriers into the government that shouldn't just be there. KSHA already deals with this, and that's their what's it called? Under their jurisdiction.
Purview. Yep. Jurisdiction.
Yeah. Jurisdiction.
Yeah. I think we'd all agree that this situation that we're in would be better held locally. instead of a legislative body trying to determine it as a blanket statement across the whole board. Let the school administrators, the coaches, parents decide what's best for the particular student and everybody else that is involved. It should be that way. And yes, we adore you as well, Isidro. We really do hope. So let's jump into our school board. Isidro, as mentioned earlier, you ran for USD 457 Board of Education last year. Unfortunately, you did not win, did not secure enough votes to get on this board. So here we are. We did have 3 people that ran on one ticket, which was highly unusual. They made it extremely political, which usually the Board of Education is a non-political race. You don't identify as Republican, Democrat on the ballot. There was legislation that went through, I believe, this session where if one person decides they want to declare themselves as a Republican or Democrat on the Board of Education race or city race, where these are nonpartisan typically elections, you have to declare which way you're going to run. So there's a little bit of a change there upcoming on this next election. But anyway, we had these 3. They made it extremely political. They ran on a highly conservative platform. One of the photos that they put out that we took issue with was with the 1776 Commission logo, which is a highly racist commission report that came out under the Trump administration. It was highly unfactual, extremely partisan. It overall was just a bad thing. And with these 3...
not with children's best interest in mind.
And without children's best interests in mind. And if you are from Garden City or the community, we are a highly diverse community. This board, one of the things that a lot of people have been saying is we need more people to run. We need the Board of Education to look a lot more like our community instead of a bunch of rich white people sitting on the board, because they're out of touch with the poor community and with the minority community, majority community in Garden City, Kansas. So with this new Board of Education, what are a couple of points that you have where you feel like they've just been completely off the mark, especially with the minority community in Garden City?
I think with that, it was just really up to them. I think they had 2 opportunities to elect and appoint a member of the school board that represented the community. When one of the members resigned, 2 members resigned, they had the opportunity to appoint someone from our community that really needs our representation, and they failed to do that twice. Even during those appointments, they made comments that they needed diversity, and they still chose another white person to fill that position. Also, with the recent moving of ESL assistants in the school district, our community heavily speaks 2 languages, primarily Spanish and English, because our community has a huge Hispanic and Latino population. And also on academics, when I ran for school board, they focused mainly on academic test scores instead of that. They would add more requirements and probably take funding away from schools if academics were going low. But they didn't address the underlying issues of why academics were low, which is poverty in our community. If we don't address the underlying STEM issues in our community, then how the heck are we going to govern on our school board when our hands are tied because of the state legislators or their city council members are going against what we should be doing as a government body, which is doing the basic things of running our government so everyone can live their lives and not focus on these political and cultural issues. So I think there's a lot that they've done and said that has really hurt our community more than it has helped, such as comments going against the LGBT community made by board member John Weiss. And it's just things like that should not be in our board whatsoever. What's like those people, those thoughts should not be on the board. And I wish it was different, but we can change that, and hopefully it changes soon.
Yeah, it seems like they focus a lot more on the national jargon,
which is hilarious, because then there was this commentary when questions were asked about, well, that's a federal issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they love to say that when it's a hard question.
Yeah, I'm like, it was a federal issue, but we're talking about the state votes. Like,
just
I had
like
bills for them, and they're like, well, I don't know. Oh, that's back to the coffee. We'll get
Thank
back
you,
to the coffee
Whitney,
after we talk about.
Well, I was gonna say,
reading down
just
the list. I thought it was so poignant that you listed each of those bills because it felt like a long time, and I think
That's
that it really
why I did it,
highlighted.
because they need to. When
Well,
you hear them all and see them all,
I'm not sure who the new guy was. His Adam. Who was the guy that was there that was new?
he's from a different
Adam
district.
Smith.
He's from, yeah,
Adam
He's
Smith.
from Goodland, northwest Kansas, up there.
Yeah.
So he was
Weston,
invited.
Kansas, apparently.
Yeah.
He made one point that I totally agreed with, which is our legislator will bring a bill in. It'll be listed, something food assistance, and next thing you know, it's got all these transgender laws packed into it. They're bringing all these bills to the forefront and gutting them and packing in all this other stuff. And so I think that bills need to move, one issue, and just be left alone to
But
that.
it's because-
And putting these poison pills into
because three of those guys up there love that stuff. Love it when it gets slipped in there so that they can pass it at 4:00 in the morning in the dead of night. They're not up there passing school education bills at 4:00 in the morning. They're giving themselves raises. They're giving themselves tax cuts. That's what's going on when they're out there at 4 in the morning. And then they come back and they brag about it and talk about how hard they worked. But Adam
I swear
did.
to God, if I had heard one more time about their whining about how hard that job is, and then tell us that if we want to change it, we should do it ourselves. And it's like,
Yeah. And they constantly bully the minority party, which makes it funny that they say they want to be bipartisan because, like, for
Right.
example, with the education funding bill, they try to push in an amendment to put in the voucher bill in the education funding bill while also tying in what's it called, sped funding and funding for teachers, and in a way trying to force the Democrats' hands, like, oh my gosh, like we have to vote for vouchers, but now with that bill it's also included for sped funding, so I have my hands tied. It's going to look like I'm going to go against sped funding if I vote against this bill, but if I vote for it, it's going to look like I'm for sped funding, but I'm also for school vouchers. So they're really being really mean, and they're not playing fair. They're being bullies in the legislature, and it's just not right at all.
So back to our school board, we keep talking about diversity, and Dr. Dominguez was probably a diversity hire for superintendent of Garden City. He's been in the community for a little over a year. There's rumors that they haven't changed their license plates yet. They still have Texas license plates. So are they really becoming a part of the community, or, do they have other plans? Are they skipping out on taxes because of the property tax difference in Garden City? Yada, yada, yada. We can go on and so on and so forth. But he's been here for almost a year now. In your experience, Isidro, what has he done inside of the Hispanic community outside of the school?
I'd like to say the bare minimum. I haven't seen him out in the community, going out to the events that the city hosts, going out to businesses, or especially like that I want to see more politicians doing is go door knocking, go to your neighborhoods. Like, you could just walk up to any street and be like, hey, I'm a legislator and this is what's going on and I want your opinion on it. They do nothing of that. And as a superintendent, I don't see him doing that. Just the way he works as an administrator, don't think it's effective, especially him being a minority himself. I'd expect him to want to reach out to his own minority group, which he hasn't, which I see as a backstabber. But I hope he changes in the future and ends up reaching out to us. And I will definitely want to work with him on stuff.
It's very frustrating because that's what I say ran, but he was hired. So, his interview process contained the rhetoric of making sure he gets stakeholder input and making sure he understands that while our community looks a lot like the one that he came from, that we have our own unique situation, and that why wouldn't you want to get to know the people that are here?
I gave him the opportunity again this morning to communicate with the community that he represents.
And we've had the same interaction with him twice now with two.
So,
Two of us.
Caitlin, tell me about your interaction, and I'll tell you about mine this morning.
Yeah, so I was during Girl Scout season minding my own business at our Girl Scout booth, and I'm not sure, people come into Sam's to eat lunch. Oftentimes I will go in to look for something and it's not there, so I'll leave without something. But the interaction was we clocked each other when he came in. And then I had moved positions in the little foyer before you get into Sam's to be by the heater. So I was like within view. And he just strolled right up to me. And what he said was, "Hey, you look really familiar. Do I know you from somewhere?"
You're
and
on my list.
"I'm Caitlin." And I shook his hand. And he complimented my shoes, which they were great shoes. So thank you for that. But I
Can't help it.
Couldn't help but think about this. I'm an overanalyzer and a catastrophizer anyway, so my brain will go into places that I don't necessarily want it to go, but I couldn't help but think, like, why would you be coy about that? Like, I even get that it's fair that because I've looked you up and done all this research to have commentary about it, that you would do the same to me as an opponent with differing rhetoric. So it was just weird. It was awkward.
So then this morning he walks up to me at the legislative coffee before everything got started. Well, I guess they were getting started, but he said, "You look familiar. Do I know you from somewhere?" And I said, "I'm Zach Wharf with Sunflower State of Mind. I've been trying to get a hold of you for an interview." And he goes, well, I work 40 hours a week, sometimes 60 hours a week. I don't have time for that. And I said, "Well, we have a lot of USD 457 members that follow us, and they would like to hear from you and would like you to be interviewed by us." And he says, "Well, I can't. I work 40 hours a week. We
all do. We all do."
And I said, "So I'm going to chalk that up to a hard no then," and walked away. So the fact that he used the same line that with me that he did with you, he knows exactly who we are. He's probably one of the 10 people watching right now. Hi, Doc. We still want you on the show.
We love your hate watching. Thank you.
I didn't even realize he was sitting in front of me like most of that. The coffee. I was like, "Wait, that is him?"
Yeah, that was him today.
And I would have been.
He was on his phone most of the coffee. Not that I had room to talk. I was playing with cameras and phones and being busy myself.
That shirt. That's a good shirt.
Isidro, before I want to get into some Facebook comments here in a second, but first we were talking about the take that you have with this guy, and I'm sure I'm beating a dead horse because this is just an alternate reality question. Did you have much experience working with Glinda? And how did you think that she did for minority communities, the minorities in our community in the school system? Glinda.
La Barbara.
La Barbara, yeah.
La Barbara.
Yes.
Former deputy superintendent.
My brain.
With Glenda, I think she would have been a great superintendent. I don't know her too well, but I'd say compared to Dr. Dominguez, I think she'd be best fitting in that position just because she's had experience. She's really reached out to at least some educators and some community stakeholders who work with minority community members. And so I'd say that she'd be best fitting. And I wish she would have been the superintendent.
I worked with some ladies that were part of the district, and they were very much, their sentiment was, we didn't know what to expect when she was appointed, to be in charge of what she was in charge of. But the takeaway or the outcome of that was how hard she worked for the teachers, how much she listened to them, and the way that she tried to go about making sure that they were heard and represented.
I just want to point out, like you said, she was more part of the minority community. Last thing I saw her at was, I hope I say their name right, the Karen New Year, which is a Asian group. So they had a festivities, and they did it at one of the schools for that community, and that's where I last bumped into her at. I was there, I was invited, and that showed to me even then that she was at least branching out.
About community, yeah.
Yes, and she was at least like, "Hey, I'm present and I'm listening to you." Now let's get into these. Yeah, Glinda has over 30 years experience with 12 years in USD 457. Her background in special education alone was invaluable. I am the teacher I am today because you know how many people have told me that? My friend Grant, he's now got his doctorate in special
don't come easy.
Yeah, she was his Actually, I think she was Lindley's principal at that time too. But anyway, that's going back in the Wayback Machine. Let's get to these other Facebook.
Well, before we do that, so Dr. Dominguez a couple weeks ago, to reiterate, and you touched a little bit on it, Isidro. He started out on a reallocation of certified teachers, certified for science, certified for intervention, certified for ESL, and SPED, and is moving them into general education classrooms to take, to answer the teacher shortage problem that we are having here in Garden City. So when he did this announcement, it came after the early retirement deadline for many teachers, which I believe was March 15th, where they would lose their benefits if they decided to retire after that deadline, which was a big part of the controversy here. Over the last week, and you attend most of the school board meetings, I think you stay really involved, and so you know quite a bit. One of the statements that he made is this is something that we've been discussing for the last 4 years, and that he had Board of Education approval for this. Do you recall at any point in time over just the last year us talking about moving certified specialized teachers to gen ed away from these programs with the Board of Education?
I don't.
Yeah,
we but don't that either. Is something I oppose.
Tremendously, yeah, and most of us do oppose, and I think
our legislators today, when I asked my questions, said that it was board approved, and that's just not true. Not that we have any evidence of, and if there is evidence of board approval, then they should produce it, because it doesn't exist as far as we're aware.
And over the last week, educators have had contract negotiation training. I believe it was on Tuesday and Wednesday of last week, where Dr. Alacourt is quoted as saying that this decision has come from the principals now at schools, and the principals have the choice to move interventionalists and ESL into the gen ed classrooms, effectively pulling Dr. Dominguez out of the conversation and putting it on
the principals.
Yeah. Have you heard discussion with principals on this matter? How they feel about it?
I have not, but I'm assuming they'd probably be upset that their superintendent's throwing them under the bus for this issue that's deeply unpopular in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Have you seen any of the data that was mentioned over the last 4 years?
I haven't, but I do know it's just going to be very harmful to do what Dr. Dominguez and the board want to move those teachers out.
Yeah.
Sure.
I know that I've heard anonymously through commentary that there are individuals who were building their career on working toward being the certified interventionalists that are needed, and really felt like it's been a slap in the face to now really like, okay, so they've worked that hard to become qualified for that position, and now there are long-term sub positions open where the qualifications are not the same at all. And how is that not a slap in the face to everything that they were working for?
They're basically turning into the science, and even
the
some of the
student loan bills still due every month.
Yeah, they're turning some of the English ASL and the science into just basically YouTube watching.
Correct. And Lindley makes a strong point here. It was a conversation that has been had with the previous administration, but teachers were involved in that, and they were transparent as to what could potentially happen.
Right.
If this were to go through, and it kind of died down, and then boom, here we are out of left field.
We talked about it when we were. Oh, sorry.
Right. And so. With that, where teachers were involved with the conversation, how important do you feel, if you do decide to run for school board on the next one, how important do you feel it would be to ask a student to be a part of the Board of Education as well, so they're represented?
Oh my gosh, I think that would be like super important to like have a committee just for students like in the school district to have their input, because I'm like, we're deciding stuff for them, and they're half of the time they're not involved. Some of their parents are just really busy with work, and with teachers, I think I think it should be a requirement to have input from those groups prior to moving and approving any stuff on the board. So I think, yeah, I would definitely love to have students involved, especially high school students, because they're the ones that are going to leave high school and are going to have to take on these decisions themselves later on.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I even know students in the middle school curriculum that would be highly, articulate on the matter, even about what they'd like to see before they even hit high school. So
yeah,
just because they're younger than us. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we're serving them. I want to make sure we're serving them the best we can and giving them the best resources and making them feel comfortable so that we can make them be the best person they can be, whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we have an issue in our school district where white kids are being taught that history is wrong and they should be ashamed of themselves for what their ancestors did?
I don't think so. I didn't graduate too long ago from this school district, so I'd say that is not true at all. I think in our history classes we're taught like the facts, and some of the facts are very gruesome in some parts of history, and I don't think any white person that I've known at the high school or myself have felt isolated by learning history. Nothing to hate yourself, nothing to hate white people, nothing to hate another race, really just understanding the facts of history and learning more about historical events that we didn't learn in previous high school years. So it's nice, but yeah.
Right.
Do you feel like history should be sugar coated?
No, I think it should be plainly straight facts and open and have all the data open to everyone and access.
I think the most jarring example I've ever heard of whitewashed history was being told on repeat my entire grade school history, what kind of teeth did George Washington have? Wooden teeth is what you're told, right? Right? No, it was slave teeth ripped out of the mouths of slaves and put into his mouth.
Oh my!
Now that's the type of whitewashing we do.
And one thing that I've seen recently is even our board is doing this. They literally did it on the first board meeting of the month. That worked. Okay, the first board meeting of the month, we had they were just doing a simple talk on a curriculum that they were getting for PE, and they were doing a bunch of research, and one aspect of that curriculum was social and emotional learning.
Oh, don't say those words.
Yeah. So apparently this is now being associated with the LGBTQIA, but it's just teaching a kid that when you're playing dodgeball and you get hit with the ball, you don't have to go have a meltdown, and how to deal with the emotions so that they don't have a meltdown. What are your thoughts on some of these SEL pushes that they're doing right now on our school board even?
I think they're just ridiculous. I think it's going to push teachers and parents to like the breaking point where they have to like work every minute, every little thing, and do these impossible tasks that we shouldn't even be focusing on. It's just so ridiculous, a waste of time, a waste of money, and not a way to improve the human intelligence. And so, yeah, I think it's just really ridiculous.
I love how it's the same group of people that call everyone else a snowflake, but you say social emotional learning and they clutch their pearls.
Yeah.
Social emotional learning, CRT. Wait, what's the other trigger word right now in education? I'm sure there's a couple more. Social emotional learning, CRT, and
they like to call teachers socialists.
Oh, they like to call. Yeah. Oh no, I remember. It's DEI, diversity, equity, and integration. That's the third one. I'm like,
can't
those
talk
are
about
the
equity.
Trigger words right now. How dare we allow others?
So we know at this next Board of Education meeting, I believe there's going to be 10 teachers submitting their resignations to leave the district. And we have a new deputy superintendent who is out of Perrington, Texas, which is from Dominguez's inner circle. There have been...
Why are we doing that when we have literally qualified individuals to take that position? We know why they're doing that.
One of the other rumors that are going around right now is a plan of assistance for Dr. Dominguez. There have been reports, several reports, unverified, verified, of harassment claims. So a lot of people feel like this hire from his inner circle is for him to have somebody to back him up, speak out for him, and try to help meddle the muddy water.
One guy to say you're doing swell, and a whole community to say you're screwing it all up.
is kind of where that hire has come from. There has a lot of people in our district right now that are educators don't feel like this Board of Education trusts them. Don't feel like the superintendent trusts them to make good decisions in the classroom. Where do you think the biggest disconnect with that is, Isidro?
I think the disconnect is supporting things in the board that are obviously in opposition to the ideologies of these teachers and just the way public education should function. I think they're just chipping away at the foundations of what the board is supposed to focus and serve is the community in public education and how we could improve that. And I think they're really just going against all of that. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, if you have a degree, if you're young, you're old. The purpose of you being on that school board is to improve our public education system. And by doing that is listening to teachers, making sure that they're involved in the meetings. And if you don't see them in meetings, reach out to them, email them, go to the schools, visit. Like, you're elected into that position to have the intelligence to reach out, use all your resources to make the best policy you can. And I don't think they're doing that. And then they're clearly not listening to teachers. Right. It's just a shame.
When in teachers the least, speak out, they could show up to those meetings to listen without any extra work, the bare minimum.
Yeah, and if they can't attend, which I see that they attack people saying, oh, well, you don't have time to attend. Well, why don't they have time to attend? Maybe because our society is built where we're working 40 to 60 hours a week. Plus, we got to take care of kids. And we have
40 hours a week.
Things. Yeah, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, now I see why Dr. Dominguez doesn't have time to set up a meeting with someone. Because, like, look at you. You can't even attend meetings. So how can you expect community members to go to these meetings that are, like, just kind of out of the time for a working class person? So, yeah, that's just my take.
This board, the three new members that ran on a platform of transparency and accountability. Do you feel like they've scored high marks?
No, I think they failed completely, especially on their campaign Facebook page. No updates of what they're doing. I mean, they worked as a coalition to run together, and I see no coalition work whatsoever on the current school board of what they're doing. No opinions whatsoever. They're not reaching out to the community. And on their Facebook post when they were running, they put their post in Spanish too. And I mean, I don't see any Spanish emails going out to the community members on the horrible work they're doing on the board. I don't see any of that. And so
not only that, but
they failed.
But they have gone the other way on the spectrum, which is to relegate as much as they can, as much as the discussion as they can into executive session so that the public isn't aware. There are documents disappearing that were available at one point. So not only are they not handling their campaign promises, they're working in the opposite direction. And can you tell us, Isidro, did you have experience? Did that campaign in any way jump into your real life? Like, were there consequences for you just running a post?
Yeah, definitely. There's many people that I believe support their party. Republican Party are very conservative within the town, which is a small minority because the majority of the people in town are very, in a sense, very progressive, socially progressive. If you go out to the community, there's gay people, there's trans people, there's people from all walks of life, and we're okay living with those people. It's the legislators that are making it an issue. But those specific people that supported them, like, they're like, oh, well, Isidro's a Marxist, he's a communist, he's this like crazy left-wing radical, just because I had said some comments during one of the town hall meetings that we had where I said, like, hey, I just want to bring more federal and state funding, which we haven't been getting adequately, to our school board. And as a school board member, it's my job also to advocate to the state legislators, to federal legislators on behalf of my community. I don't even have to do that, but I'm going to do that as a school board member to make sure my voice is being heard. And so I feel like I just got attacked for that. And being a young person and not having a bachelor's degree yet, it's like, oh, well, you don't have a bachelor's degree and you're too young. So what makes you valuable to serve on the board? which is that kind of ageist, kind of classist, kind of racist vocabulary is used to make working class people not serve local office. Like, how are you ever you want people to fix these issues, but yet when they approach the systems to get involved and actually fix them, you add barriers to keep them away. So it's just an issue within the community that I see. And now that I'm like more vocally opponent politically and civically, I get backlash. Like today when I said that, I told the legislators at the legislative coffee, why are you attacking LGBTQ people? I'm sure there's people up at the front that turned back and like looked at me like, who the heck is this boy saying whatever his stuff? And that's like a term that's often like used towards people of color, towards young people, as like labeling as like young man or boy, like trying to take away my power as a 23-year-old of my intelligence, you know? And so it's just things like that I caught on.
That's you know what would be the most surprising is if any of those people who make that commentary that, oh, Isidro is a Marxist and blah, 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 it would be quite surprising if any one of those people has ever even opened the front page of the Communist Manifesto. Like, do you even know what you're saying? Because
you know, one of the big things that teachers are experiencing right now, and why we are here as a show, is retaliation against teachers. If they come out against something that they don't feel the board is doing well or the administration's not doing well, they're getting the hammer dropped on them. If you were to run for Board of Education, what would you do to help bridge that gap where teachers could come to you and feel like they're being listened to, they're being heard, and they're not going to get in trouble for disagreeing with something that maybe you decided was good for our district that they may not see?
First and foremost, I'd reach out to those teachers that had voiced their concerns and say like, hey, like I'm this new school board member, like I understand where you're at and I feel you and I want to represent you. Like, work with me. I want to work with you and I want to work with your educators in your space to see what we can do. And as a school board member, I'd probably go email whoever, all the principals, and be like, give me all the emails for all your teachers and I want to skim through and see who I can speak to work on stuff and go from there. I think that's really the viewpoint that a school board member should be, is reaching out, being that's why you're elected to that position, to be that pinpoint and do the work while we're working. We're hoping that school board member is doing the work to make sure our public system's running well.
It sounds so simple and yet so foreign.
Yeah, it's so simple. I don't know what's so complicated. And when they say, oh, I don't have the answers to this, I'm like, yes, you do. There's Google and there's like thousands of scholarly journals on the topic. I'm pretty sure.
I would like to point out, I don't think we shared this one thing from Lindley. She's done a lot talking about the looks like the training they're controlling who can observe the negotiations. It looks like what they could and couldn't do with they're trying to get as much as they can get away with without violating COMA and Article 22. And apparently Randy Ralston and Jackie Jiggett are going to be the two board members soon on the negotiations. So,
they were appointed for that, weren't they?
Which is crazy to me. You know, they don't want them live stream yet. They're going to be the most transparent board we've ever seen.
Right?
Yeah, it's not complicated. I'm like, if you want to join in and see what's going on, as long as it's nothing like super confidential, where it's like your social security and your health and stuff like that, then yeah, you can come in and like watch our meetings and go on. I don't care. So I don't know what's so hard about the transparency.
Well, the thing is, right, you're the exact kind of person who would mess up their shit. They've got something going where they can each put the how they benefit into each other's pockets and keep working together. And I, as far as I can see, the teachers would be desperate to have you as a voice, or anyone that just listens to them. And I think that would be very dangerous for the current system. That would be exactly what would mess up their shit. And so, of course, I think it was Mark Twain who said, if voting worked, they wouldn't let us do it. So,
and that brings me to my next point too. We have historically low voter turnout in Finney County. It's really bad. Gen Z is coming up. They're starting to take over elections nationally, and maybe we're going to see a little bit of that turn here in Finney County in the next election as well. But it seems to be like the same group of 4,000 to 6,000 people voting in every election. How do we reach out to the minority community in this county and educate them and get them to the polls?
I think there's a lot we can do on that. I think partly is education. I think it starts at the public school system, where like in the high schools they can do a thing where they automatically register 18-year-olds the first day they become 18 at the high school, and starting to incorporate young people into civic projects. I think one important tool right now is like TikTok, like social media, like we're seeing like the attempted bans of TikTok, the censorship of young people's viewpoints on social media. I think we're starting to see a lot of like nonprofit grassroots organizations across Kansas, across the country, that are really wanting to focus specifically on young people to talk to their friends and their family, because like they're the ones that have direct, like me, like I work with Loud Light a lot, with New Frontiers and like the ACLU Kansas on so many campaigns, and they come to me just because I have like hundreds of friends that are like the same age as me, and I have like that arm that could reach out to them and be like, hey guys, like there's like these really bad politicians running for office and I need you guys to like register to vote, and like if you guys can do the research, I'll do the research and I'll pass it on to you guys, so you guys just go out and vote and don't have to do all of this.
And your generation is clearly cut from a different cloth. You know, just like Brian said earlier, I put it up a second ago, but Zoomers give me hope. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw what happened in Nashville recently with all of those kids. And I mean, we were the generation that wanted to see change and whatnot, but you're the generation that said, no, we're going to bring it. And so I love that passion from you. So
we had to hit our 30s for us to be like, I will give less fucks now. And you guys are embracing it.
I was forward to fight.
Yeah.
I told my parents, like, a lot of people would come up to me. They're like, oh, so you're a leftist or a right wing? And I'm like, no, I honestly just don't care. I'm like, just be a good person, be kind.
Exactly.
You're doing something right if you have one side saying you're a leftist and one side saying you're a rightist.
Yeah, and I'm like, I can't stand either of you. And I'm like,
I hate you.
You know, I'm like, how about you go watch TV and leave me alone? And
how about be a humanist?
My gay friends. Yeah.
The world exists on a spectrum. And it doesn't matter really what topic you're talking about, whether it be biology or politics. There is no binaries in the world. Everything is a spectrum.
Yeah. When you get down to it, the issue is like classism, right? Like it's a class war.
Yeah.
And the people who have more money than we do quite literally live in a totally different reality. And I think that if they would acknowledge that set of privilege, it would go a long way.
Never forget, 10% of the people control 83% of the money.
I think if the high school would have hosted the legislative coffee with a bunch of high schoolers, I'm pretty sure all of those legislators would be roasted by every high schooler. And that's how they would know that they are so out of touch. And I'm like,
so
yeah,
now
you
got to use all those friends and get them at the next coffee.
That's right.
And I'm like, when they go, and I'm like, you'll know exactly that you're very out of touch.
Did we cover this already? What made you the most? Did we already ask him what made him the most heated at the coffee, or was that earlier?
I don't think
that was earlier.
Oh yeah,
that was earlier. What made you the most heated at the coffee, Isidro?
What made me most heated was Representative Minnick saying that he felt a lot of tension in the room, and saying that he felt a lot of anger. And it's kind of funny because the way he was sitting at the table, he was staring straight at me, and I get very upset. My face is very like. When I'm upset, y'all know when I'm upset. And I was just sitting there crossed arms, staring straight at him, mad the whole time. And the more misinformation he kept saying about like school vouchers, like voting against anti-trans people, like the more mad I got. And he knew I was getting upset. He knew audience members were starting to say comments. And so definitely it was making me mad that he was just like kind of dissing us as he was saying why his ideas are better than ours.
They were very dismissive of the audience.
Don't worry. I respect you and think that you should live. I just think that we need to legislate you.
You know what? I know. Like, fuck off with the platitudes. And every time somebody made a great point, whether they were doing it deliberately or not, the point was diminished by joking around about it. And then they go, hey, let's have some decorum and let's make sure we're all... but we'll not treat the issue seriously like we wanted to. So of course there's going to be tension.
Yeah,
I
and
think
when Representative Clifford and Senator Dahl, they joked around and said, "Oh, a Democrat question." I'm like, "Well, should I say a fascist question? Something that's like so good to your party that you guys love fascism?" I'm like,
Are
I don't
you more
know.
comfortable with this?
I'm like,
But
sorry
just-
that
When
I'm
you-
at a public forum.
When you ask a question about something they have control over, they say, "Well, I'm not familiar with that bill or all of those bills or whatever." When
'Cause
you
we're
ask a
not on
question
that
about
committee.
national politics, they care about nationalism. Clifford said something about Bud Light today, so they care about the
that
national
was an inappropriate
images.
That was very rude.
But when
I'm
you
like,
ask
what are you
about
trying
something
to
that's
say here?
beyond their purview, they don't want to comment on it. When you ask about something local, then, and they're like, "Well, it's not our job to legislate locally." You are literally a representative of the local district within.
And I had.
They just don't want to answer the questions. Period. That's why it wasn't. They didn't want a Democrat question. They wanted an easy question.
Yep.
Also known as a Republican question.
They're so used to being soft served ice cream. You know,
That was very clear.
What it was.
The thing that I felt today was, in the past, they've only got, like, as I believe Kent, you pointed out, that they talk with they've talked with their guy, or was it Zach who said it? Somebody said it, where they talk with their guy, but who is that guy? Who's the guys that you're talking to? Is it just other older, white, wealthier people?
It's their donors. It's their donors. It's who's giving them the most money. It's who they're talking to. They're not talking to everybody.
Yeah, and I feel like our area is way more purple than they realize, because they're only looking at that red section and then going, but now they've made so many people upset that we're now coming out of the woodworks to let our voices get heard, and now they're like, "Oh, this is what it's actually like." Yes.
And with SB 180, the Women's Fairness Sports Act, I was just kind of surprised that they all were kind of on the same answer, where they said like, "Oh, I don't know too much about trans," or "I don't know too much about this community, this and that." Like, well, if you don't know so much about the trans community, you don't know much about the issues, then why the heck are you voting on a bill that you know nothing about? But that's what really just pissed me off.
Yeah.
The
well,
most.
That's why when I started my statement, I'm like, you guys don't have any skin in the game. I actually stole that from a friend of mine, because we were talking with somebody else about basically the same issue, and I brought up, I was like, "How many people do you even know?" And he's like, "Well, I don't actually know any trans people." I'm like, "Well, it affects my life because I do." So, but and then the other my friend was like, "You have no skin, so you should stop commenting."
Basically,
another thing that is,
they'll bend to Republican leadership and they don't care what their constituents say.
Right. Well, see, and that's something that I've kind of gathered over the last few of these coffees is I don't feel like Bob Lewis is on the same page as the rest of them. I mean, I know they all kind of vote the same way, but Bob Lewis is a step more extreme than all of them.
He's closer to QAnon than he is just a normal Republican.
Every talk that I saw him on, he only would do the national rhetoric. At the very least, Clifford and I'm forgetting names all of a sudden. Well, Dahl, and then
Minix.
Minix, that's the one that I was missing. At the very least, like, I can respect that they at least are trying to bring, like, when they see something that will support or hurt Southwest Kansas, maybe not necessarily on the social spectrum, but like the voucher bill, for example, they're all hardcore against it because they know it's going to hurt.
Minix doesn't want to talk about anything
Kansas.
but the water. That's his
And
thing.
who's
He
the
wants
guy
to talk
that
about water so
if
bad.
you don't like this district, move districts.
Well, that was something that was a big. Was it last session they approved that, where you can go to a different district now? I think a lot of it was due to sports, where if you don't like the district, you don't have to live in the district, and
they open the districts.
They open the districts up, and so I think that's a big, large part of it.
That's fine, but you should be allowed to do that if that's what you want to do. But for those of us who do not have the access or the means to change districts, it's just another way to say, like, well, we're sorry you're trapped.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Greg is definitely right. They
dodged all those questions.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of nothing answers.
Isidro, Before we let you go, we want to thank you so much again for taking the time to be here. We want to thank you so much for everything that you've done in the community to bring awareness to the issues that affect all of us, minorities, a level playing field. It's a breath of fresh air to have somebody out there who is actively involved in politics, just to spit the truth and to be real and, and have the poor community in mind. We're all a part of that poor community, and so we align on a lot of the issues, and we sit back and say, "What the f?" On
multiple
a lot of
our
things.
legislators today admitted we don't know all the answers because we're old in so many words. So it's great to see people like you say, "Yeah, that's why I'm here. Let's do something about your old ass and move you on out of here."
And we definitely need more guys like you out there in our community to run for these offices, not just Board of Education, City Commission, County Commission, State House Representative, State Senate, all that jazz. It is very hard to run. It's set up for rich people to run. So for you to be out there and be in tuned into that fight is pretty awesome. Do you have any final thoughts for us before we let you go?
Yes, I wanted to say thank you for having me on. You all are amazing. You are all leaders and trailblazers in the community, at least letting us young people move on to the next step and making our communities better. I'm working with this organization that we started in Garden City, and we're going to start doing a bunch of cool stuff this year. It's called Better Together GC. You can find us on Instagram, better.together.gc. And it's the group that did Vote No GC last year. So this group focused directly on getting out voters to vote no, to support abortion in Kansas. So yeah, definitely watch out for that, and maybe for my potential school board run and many more things. And I look forward to seeing you all and maybe being back on the show soon. But yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Well, if you need a platform to announce your run when that time comes, I know
we want to be it.
We're in.
We want to be it.
If you have friends that have something that need to be said, let them know. Let us know. I have been asked and think a lot about running myself, but I feel like I would much rather be in a supportive role, in a campaign role, rather than a role of coordinator. Like my face. I would love to help with research. Love to help with the door to door. That stuff's my bread and butter. Those tedious tasks.
It's Gen Z's turn, and we want to be here to support you guys all the way through. You're the future. You're the most in tune with what's going on the ground in the country as far as young people go. And we're here to help you with the job side of it, I guess. And so we definitely want to do that. Outside of what was the Instagram page? better.together.gc. Outside of that, how else will people follow you? Do you have a Facebook page, campaign page, anything like that where people can follow you?
I do have a Twitter account where I literally engage primarily civically on there with like other people from Kansas. My handle is the Isidro Marino.
All right, we'll find you on Twitter. Again, Isidro, thank you so much for being here, and we do look forward to having you back on the show soon, especially for that campaign announcement.
Thank you for everybody that watched and joined us at the coffee today. Your voices matter so much. Appreciate all of you.
Yes, you guys, I don't think these people have accounted for this situation. I don't think they've accounted for the sort of snowball effect.
We are making waves.
Yes, Lindley, just chef's kiss, and thank you.
Yes.
That stuff gives me inspiration and courage to be more bold in those situations when I feel uncomfortable, like especially for women where it's so hard to be taken seriously. Our voices are often just like diminished to like that. Oh, that feminist is speaking. So those things in particular really inspire me, and I hope that they inspire other people, and that we can band together even when we disagree. Like it's okay to disagree. It's okay to process through those disagreements. I think that makes us better when we can have those discussions without, just needing to be right in your ideology. And so I think just banding together and making sure that we do each have that moment to give voice to things is not only great, but imperative. And thank you. to the community.
Whitney, final thought?
Oh, my brain is just fried.
It was a day. It was a day.
Yeah, it was a day. Final thought. No, honestly, I just really hope you get on the ballot, Isidro, and keep mobilizing your crew.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Isidro. We will talk to you soon. Have a great weekend. So that was Isidro Marino, local concerned citizen at this point, hopefully future school board member and maybe other things down the road. We do have a show scheduled for Wednesday live. Representative Bob Lewis is supposed to be showing up for that show. We've had problems hearing from him. We've reached out to him to confirm and kind of get the ball rolling, and he has ghosted us completely. So we look forward to having him on the show.
Politicians don't break their promises, so we're still banking on him being there.
We are banking on him being there. If he shows up, we'll have a great conversation with him. If he does not, we've got some hammer and some nails to really drive home on Bob Lewis here next week. You guys, your voices to us are extremely important. We know that you can't speak out the way that you want to. We absolutely respect the condition of anonymity. Help me out.
Anonymity
on this anonymity on this show. So if there's something in the community that's bothering you and you're scared to make a voice, use your voice. Please use us. We are not scared. They can try to retaliate against us, but it's not gonna, really do much for them. So please talk to us. Let us know what's going on.
Dr. Dominguez, join us.
Dr. Dominguez, you have an open invitation to be on the show at any time.
Maybe if there's ever a week that you put in 39 hours, we can fill in the extra hour.
1 hour.
I was going to say, I don't work 40 hours classically in the workforce. I don't get breaks very often, but I've got 2 daughters and a stepdaughter, and they are inheriting what we're leaving for them, and the state of things is unacceptable. So, I mean, I had a very great role model in forensics in high school who told me, you make time for what you want to make time for. So,
yeah. And a quick shout out to the GCCC. Did I say too many C's? Wizards, GC Wizards. Is that what they're called, Zach? They just took the state championship. We're being told.
The quiz bowlers, right?
The quiz.
Yes. Cody.
Yeah, Cody.
Team? Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Good
we
job,
are
guys.
super proud of the Garden State Community College Quizzards. And their state championship that they just won. From what we understand, this is one of the best groups they've ever had at the JUCO. And, being a 2-year school, they're losing a lot of them next year. So if you see Cody or any of the GCC Quizzards, congratulate them for the awesome job that they did this year. And, hype up the guys that are going to be there next year. And, hey, talk to your representatives about turning GCCC into a 4-year school to help Cody out a little bit. Would be great for the community as well. All right, guys, that's our show for today. Thank you for tuning in with us on a drop of the hat's notice. We will be back on Wednesday with more news, rumors, and a personal conversation about the world as we see it.
Have a great weekend, true believers.
Bye.